Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday. Today, our guest is Agostino Pintus. He's the host of a Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. So, Agostino Pintus is an engaging speaker who boldly gets the audience thinking bigger and different. His background as a C-level executive in corporate America, managing millions in capital and leading international teams allows him to make people start thinking about their business in new ways. Agostino is a multifamily investor and an entrepreneur and public speaker with more than 15 years of experience in real estate. He currently oversees strategic partnerships, capital development, and deal sourcing for Realty Dynamics Equity Partners, an investment firm specializing in multifamily acquisition. So he is also the subject of the Bulletproof Multifamily Mindset Show, a series of highlighting topics every multifamily investor should know to build their success. Additionally, he is the host of the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast, a show focused on interviewing the top experts in the real estate arena. Here's the interview. Hi, Agostino. Welcome to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday, where we will discuss all about your first GP multifamily transaction or some of the early deals. Thank you for joining us here in the show.
Excellent. I'm excited to be here, man. Very excited to be here.
Okay, yeah. So I guess let's start. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Canada, right? And I'm a technology kid. From the time I was like 10, even 9 years old, I wanted to have a life in tech. That's what I wanted to do, and write code and do all that. And but I was always an entrepreneur at heart. But my parents pretty much told me, you know what? You don't need to be doing that stuff. You need to be working somewhere and getting a job. So that's what I did, and I ended up floating from job to job to job, and eventually I ended up at a company where I was making decent money. But I started buying single family homes, single family, some small multifamily, that kind of thing. And, but it wasn't until 15 years later from doing that very first deal, those smaller deals, that, once again, get fired again from some job. And it caused a shift in my life to re-examine my life and really take a complete hold onto multifamily real estate. That's what I made I made it my thing. I committed to doing just multifamily. And that was that commitment that really changed my life. And it really cemented my resolve to become a multifamily investor. Right. So since then, I have now acquired close to 1,000 units. We just bought the Rockefeller building. It's going to be a major redevelopment play in downtown Cleveland. We're looking at hopefully closing another 500 units by the time the year's out. We just locked up 300 about a week and a half ago. So we're definitely staying busy. And, the play here is to keep growing the business and to hit $1 billion in assets under management. That's the goal. So we're going to get there. My original goal was 10 years. I think I brought it down to 5 because, we're all running out of time. So we really have to hustle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So where are you currently located?
So right now I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. Right. And all the assets that we buy are here in Cleveland as well. Right. So, and I do this is a strategic thing that I do. I'm not a big believer in going from basically buying out of state, buying 100 units here, 100 units there, or whatever. The unit counts are too small. I get concerned about having the proper operations in place. Buying a deal is easy. Running it for 10 years profitably is very, very hard. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that many of the gurus out there, many of the people online, they're saying, hurry up, get into a deal, hurry, hurry, hurry. And everybody does that. They rush into a deal. And maybe they live in New York and they're buying some deal in Tennessee because they think the numbers are cheap and it's a little 12 unit. I mean, listen, someone's going to you're going to buy your little 12 unit deal. You're going to hire property management. Can you really rely on that property manager to keep an eye on your 12 unit deal? Meanwhile, they have another client who's got over 1,000 units. Why would they? They don't care about your 12 unit deal, and that's money that you're putting on the table. And you think that they're going to do the same job, and they're totally not going to do that, So to me, it's like I learned that the way you resolve that is to just stay focused on your market, know that market like the back of your hand, grow it. And when you think you have the critical mass, then you go to the next market. man, at that point, if you do have critical mass at that management company, maybe the management company will come along with you, right? Or you can work with another management company in that new market and just start growing in that market as well. So for me, it's all about growth, and it's about but smart growth and buying the right assets in your local market. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is like the focus on that particular market. So you know the ins and outs.
Yeah, got to
That
focus
market.
on it.
Yeah.
Every market is different. I mean, even the judges, the way that they will rule on evictions, for instance, varies from city to city. The way that you can even implement something like RUBS, racial utility billing system, right? So where, let's say, for instance, you have a property and you want to separate out the water and bill it back to the tenants. Well, in one city, it may be illegal, but in another city, it's not. So here in Cleveland, you're not supposed to do RUBS here in Cleveland, but down in Akron, you can. Or in Euclid you can't, but in West Cleveland you can. I mean, it's all different, right? So, I mean, you can imagine that's only in your backyard, let alone trying to do it from 4 states away. It's hard to do,
Yeah.
So that's why for me, it's all about staying local, know that market, know the players, know the rules, and it makes it easier. It makes it easier for you to buy, and also makes you more competitive as well, because you know what the real costs are when you're looking at a deal, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think agreed. Then how did you end up like in multifamily?
Well, it's like I said, man. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and it wasn't until I was working at this company as a technology executive, and I was making good money, and I got comfortable, right? And I knew that I wanted to do real estate again, and I didn't, because I had that little drug that kept coming in every 2 weeks. It's called a paycheck, right? The little paycheck kept coming in, right? Well, it wasn't little; it was a big paycheck. But that paycheck would show up. And what happens is that it lulls you into a false sense of security, right? When you get that check that just shows up and you're like, man, look at that. I got that check that just came in. So what are you going to do? It's Friday. You're going to go out drinking, go hang out with your buddies, do all that. And then to what end, but that's the life I was living. It was easy. It was an easy life, and even though I was earning a lot of money, that company will only pay you just enough to keep you from quitting, right? Or until they decide they don't need you anymore, which is what happened in my case. The guy that hired me, he ended up getting fired. And so now here I am, new guy comes in, new CEO comes in, he says, you know what? I'm going to bring in my own guys. You pack up your box, you get lost, you're done. So now I'm unemployed. And I'm like, I was in my mid 40s at the time, and you really have to think about it. Do you really want to be that vulnerable? Do you really, how many more times am I going to go from job to job to job only to get fired again? And then to what end? So I'll slave for them for 2, 3, 4 years or whatever, working countless hours, being on call all the time. And what am I building? Like, what am I building? I'm building their dream, not mine, not for my family. That's the way I looked at it, So it really took some internal reflection to really think about what I wanted out of life in general. That's the thing, it's like, is this the potential that I got? Is this it for me? Is this the best I can do? And I mean, I took some time to really think about that. And when I did, I got to thinking like, okay, I've been at this technology thing for 25 years at that point, or close to it anyway, at least in corporate, probably closer to 20 years, I'd say, more than 25 years as far as technology experience is concerned. But I'm thinking to myself, I could do better than this. And what's it going to be? So I knew that, like I said before, I started buying real estate, single family homes a long time before, and I sold off a lot of it while I was going through some bad stuff. But the real estate I had left was always throwing off money, no matter what I had going on in my life. And when I did that, when I realized that, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to quit the 6-figure C-level technology business and go into real estate. So I studied and I trained and then when I thought I was ready to move, I picked a market, packed up my car and moved. Right. think of what I just said, Jeff.
Yes.
I packed up my car and went to where the opportunity was. Most people are unwilling to do that. That took some sacrifice. It took some, I mean, I really had to really make a calculated decision. Like, I had to make sure that I was right, because it's time. But it's like some people aren't willing to make that sacrifice. I was. I studied, I trained like a maniac. Every single course that I can get my hands on, every single book that I can get my hands on, I was studying it from morning until night for months on end, right? Then when I got into Ohio, I started looking for deals, started cultivating the relationships and really working to build that. I mean, it took a little bit to finally get the first deal, then the second one, and then now where we're at today, owning some of the best real estate in Cleveland, as I see it anyway. It didn't happen by accident. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of guts, I'll tell you that. But you know what though, man, it's been a hell of a journey, and I wouldn't have it any other way, man. There's not a day that I ever say to myself, my God, I wish I could go back to work in corporate America. I've never, ever, ever had a day like that, ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yep. I think like that's true too. Like in the one that you mentioned, that you're not building your own kind of dream, right? You're building whatever the boss or whoever is the CEO of that company, and then by the end of the day too, like you have like a little voice out of that company.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, I mean, I was still a C-level executive, so I had a voice,
oh, is
but
it?
yeah, but at the same time too, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Is this the best I got? Is this my full potential?
Yeah.
Right? Is this all I got in the tank, or can I do more? And it's very easy when you can go work somewhere and they pay you 40 hours or whatever. In my case, I was working closer to 60 or 70 hours actually, most weeks.
Oh yeah.
And but to what end? To what end? And it sounds like I'm railing on the 40-hour work week. I'm not. I mean, well, maybe it sounds like I am, and maybe I am, I guess, to some extent. But I guess, it's ultimately, it's freedom. It's all about getting that freedom that most people want. And I'm sure your listeners, if they're listening to this right now, is that they're listening to this because they want that freedom. And they might be afraid, they might be afraid to take that leap. I know I was, man, I was scared, because I mean, in my family, it was ingrained that if you don't have a job, you're a piece of crap. You're a loser. You're a fool. You're lazy. So you better get a job, and you better get a job right now. That kind of thing. So that was ingrained from when I was a kid. So there's that emotional thing to overcome as well. And I mean, it can be very tricky, but like I said, man, I mean, it's one of those things that now I get to live life on my own terms. And I get to build and craft the life that I want, the way that I want to do it. Right? That's the difference. It's not about not having a boss to report to. There's always someone to report to. But it's more like crafting the life that you want, the way you want it, and being worth a damn. That's another big part of it. And being worth a damn means studying, training, making sure you're in good physical condition, making sure you're in good mental condition, making sure that you have the right emotional components running your internal software in your mind. Make sure that's all hitting on all cylinders. All that needs to be accounted for, because if it's not, you're going to have a very hard time in not only this business, but in life in general.
Yeah, that's really like a good lesson. Then that's a good segue to like for the next question, like any limiting belief that you have, and how did you overcome it to get to your first deal?
Oh, wow, man. I mean, I guess the limiting beliefs that I had, the limiting beliefs are all around, I can't raise any money, right? There's that. There's, no one will talk to me. No brokers are going to talk to me. No investors are going to talk to me. No partners are going to talk to me. And you know what though, man? The thing about these limiting beliefs is that they're valid. It's all real. It's true, actually. They don't want to talk to you. No one wants to talk to you. But I'll tell you what, the reason they don't want to talk to you is because you're not worth a damn. So what does that mean? That means that if you're going to go to an investor, if you're going to go to a broker, if you're going to go and talk to people, you better do the upfront training to prepare yourself to make sure that when you do get in front of those people, that they look you up online. They see that you got the website, you have the LinkedIn, you have the Facebook, you have your social media is all uniform. You have a great headshot, you have a credibility book, you have everything in place that demonstrates that you are who you say you are, right? Things like that. So, I mean, so those limiting beliefs, yeah, I had them, but it wasn't until I first studied and trained, got to understand what to say, how to say it, and really bridge the gap, right? Because a limiting belief is fear. And the reason why we experience fear is because of a lack of knowledge. And of course, how do you fix the lack of knowledge? Well, you go get the knowledge. And once you have the knowledge and you apply it, that's the key. You have to apply the knowledge. I went in, I created the website, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I did it. That's how I was able to overcome all those limiting beliefs, right? That's what it was, right? And then after a while, you start believing in yourself, and you're believing your ability to execute, and that's the thing. I mean, that's fortunately, because I had the corporate America experience and working at the C-level, I was accustomed to seeing big numbers. I was accustomed to being in control of teams and making things happen. So I might have a little bit easier time than most people because I've been under that pressure for over 25 years. So I'm lucky in that regard, I suppose. But it should not be any reason why people that are just starting off cannot still perform, but the key is you got to get the knowledge. You have to get that knowledge. You really have to really believe in it and apply it. That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I guess that's the important keynote to our listeners is like, yeah, you need to be educated. Like, there's a lot of books. Like, that's the reason why all these big time investors have written a book, because they dump their knowledge into those books. So get the time to read it. And there's already like tons of podcasts already about multifamily. Like each and every kind of investors are now building their own podcast to make their branding and stuff. So information wise, like, it's a good thing, like nowadays, like, there's a lot of podcasts, because I think maybe 10-15 years ago there's none.
Right. But you know what though, Jeff, I'll tell you, man, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, a lot of how should I say, it's just incorrect, wrong info, man. A ton of it out there. And what I suggest to people is to not listen to 50 different podcasts, right? Just pick 2. That's it. Just 2. And you pick 2 mentors, virtual mentors or real ones, but you pick 2 virtual mentors in the case of podcasts, and go deep. Listen to every single one, learn all you can from that person. And then once you do, then go to the next one. That's hard to do. That's tough to do, but that's how I learn. It's like, if you start jumping from podcast to podcast, or book to book to book, there's no uniformity. And the material is, it could be very conflicting, right? Yeah. That's why it's like, I only have a couple of mentors that I listen to, virtual mentors, right? Only a couple of them. And I go deep on those guys. I study everything that they say. The material doesn't come out as fast as it should, or I wish I would, or as fast as I wish it would anyway. Because, they're not trying to sell me a course. They're just putting out material. Right.
Yes.
And they reflect the values, and they reflect the prosperity that I want to see in my life. So it's a little different too, so part of it is that I'm listening to podcasts that maybe it's similar to what I'm looking to do, like in the case of redevelopment or development of buildings, for instance, of complexes. I'm doing that now. So I'll listen to podcasts related to that, but I'm also listening to Sam Zell. Like any type of stuff that Sam Zell has, I'm listening to it. The guy's a multi-billionaire. He made it all in real estate. You know, I want to be that one day. Right. So what better way than to watch his material, see what he's like? What does he say? How does he say it? What's he thinking? You know, I'm not going from billionaire to billionaire to billionaire. I pick one and go deep, you know, because everybody and their mother wants to sell a book right now. And, you know, no offense to those guys. They're really creating the book for themselves. They're not really creating it for you.
Yeah.
No offense. That's just what it is. That's okay. I'm not hating on them. Just saying that's what it's all about, man. And that's all right, you know, but you know, we put out our material at Bulletproof. We don't run any ads. We don't do any of that stuff. I give material out for free. It's all free. Take it, you know. You know, I'm not looking to monetize it or anything else like that. And then that show, as I'm sure you know, costs money. Costs a lot of money. Our show costs a lot of money. We have a team of maybe 15 people working on the podcast right now. You know, I'm paying those people, right? You know, it takes effort, it takes money, but that's what we do anyway. But yeah, go deep. Pick one or two mentors and go deep on those. Don't try to take in too much information from all over the place, because I think it's just going to mess people up.
Correct. Yeah. Then you will be kind of dig into that to like a big hole of like, okay, you keep on following then until you're not doing action, taking action, just listening.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess let's this is the time, like let's jump to your first deal in multifamily. So what was the source of this deal? Is it like an off market or a broker
Well, it's funny. So I'll talk about a couple of them. There's a small one, and it's relevant for one reason, only because in my mind, if I'm going to go out and raise money from people, I want to demonstrate that I was for real, you know, that I am putting my own skin in the game, right? So I happen to have a little bit of money. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to get a deal done, a small deal, right? And it was a 12-unit deal. That the only reason why I stole this deal, the only reason why I stole it was because the broker was a residential broker, and she put it on the MLS. That's the only reason. She put it in the wrong place. So there's no competitors for it. So I just happen to be on the MLS and it says 12 units. I'm like, 12 units? Huh, that's weird. Is that right? So I call, and indeed it's 12 units, you know, and I look at this property. I'm like, why is it here on the MLS? But okay, I'll take it, you know? So full price, gave him whatever he wanted for it, because I knew that it was going to be a good deal, right? I knew it was a good deal. And that's the thing. I mean, I was able to double my money on that one. That was a great deal, a great little deal. Yes. But I'd say that the first real deal that I syndicated was slightly different, you know? So when I was doing some networking, I met this really, really nice lady, and we hit it off, became really good friends. And, you know, we kept in touch. So one thing that I was doing, I still do from time to time, is I practice. It's what I call practicing your numbers, right? And what that means is bringing up LoopNet and just practicing on the deals on LoopNet, right? Put in the income, run the expenses. What's the cost per door? What's the expense ratio? What are brokers putting out there? What's a lie? What's not a lie? You know, that kind of thing, right? Like if someone puts a deal out there in Michigan, a deal in Michigan, for a C-class asset, and your expense ratio is at 41%, that's baloney. That's not true. There's no way. A C-class asset in Michigan, it'll probably be closer to 65%. Why? Because it's an older asset. To heat and cool that place is going to be more expensive than, say, a brand new property, right? And because it requires more maintenance, it's not as efficient. The heat's just going to go right out the windows, and it's things like that. But the only way you know that is through experience, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, or you listen to a lot of information like I did, right? So I was analyzing my deals and practicing my numbers, and I just happen to have a deal up on my screen, and I was on the phone with my property manager, and he happens to be selling this property that I see up on my screen, and it's for a deal. It was $1.65 million for a 56 unit. And I said to him, I go, hey, what's the story with this deal? It's been out here for a while. He says, it just fell through right now. Like it just went out of contract like a half an hour ago. So I said, well, how much do they want? He says 1.4 million. So I said, I'll take it. Send me the PSA. Now I don't recommend your listeners do that. don't. I literally said, just send me the PSA. I'll sign it right now. I mean, that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. Sight unseen. I committed to buying it. Right. I mean, with a PSA, you have a 30-day due diligence, 30-day close, all that fun stuff. You can still do all that. So I knew that. Right. But I wanted to lock it up. Right. Mm-hmm. So once I did that, then I'm like, okay, great. Now I got to get the money. Right. So I had to go. I made, you know how many phone calls I made, man, to raise the money for that deal?
Yeah. How many?
Two phone calls. That's it.
Wow. The
first lady was really mean to me. So then I called my friend and she was all about doing this deal. I should have called her first. It would have been a better story. But I called her up, told her, I pitched her, I sold her on the deal. And she flew in. She loved the deal, so it's like we went in, we did it, and we got it locked down. So it still performs. We're still holding it today. It's still doing great, and it's a LoopNet deal, unbelievably. But at their asking price, the deal would never work. At the price that because I had the inside track, I knew what their bottom line number was. I took the deal. And the thing is, though, is that I knew, because I was running my numbers all the time. I know my market. That's the thing. I know my market. I know when a deal is overpriced. I know what the general demographic is of a certain area. So that's the thing. That's why it's like you really have to know your area. And if you know what, you live in a place that is not so business friendly, move, go somewhere else. I mean, you don't have to stay where you are, and eventually I'm probably going to leave Cleveland and probably go somewhere else. I know I am actually. It's getting really cold out there right now, man. I'll tell you that. It requires a commitment to doing this business and doing it right, but anyway, yeah, that's the deal, man. And as I said, we still own it today. It's a good, solid performer. And, hopefully we're doing a second refi. We're going to pull a little bit more money out of it. So,
nice.
It's going to be super. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this deal, I guess it's in Cleveland, Ohio. Then
it's in a tertiary market. It's not in Cleveland.
Oh, not in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Outside of Cleveland.
Outside of Cleveland. Okay. Then I guess maybe we can talk about these 56 units. So it's a Class C asset.
Right. That's right.
56 units. Then what's the story of this property, like from the seller? Why the seller is selling?
Oh boy. So it's funny. This is a subsidized housing deal, right? So to do that asset class, you really, really, really got to have, nerves of steel to deal with that asset class. And the property was owned by the city, actually.
Oh.
And it fell into disrepair. The city could not operate this thing. At one point, it was at 13% occupancy. There were shootings, there were murders, there were all kinds of stuff on this property. It was a pretty big property. Even though it's only 56 units, it was spread out over 5 buildings and over a big space, right? You had car bombs, you have all kinds of stuff going on there. It was a bad scene. So the city just let it go. They didn't care anymore because they just couldn't get control of it. So this group came in, they're a turnaround group. They got it for basically nothing. They took it, fixed it up a little bit, got rid of it. Just all they did was implement good management, brought the occupancy up to about 84%. And then we took it over. We basically bought it from them, right? So I will say that there was a challenge the first time we went to go finance it, because historically all that bad stuff was still showing up.
Oh.
So banks don't like to see that. So now we've owned it for quite a while, right? We've owned it for a little bit. It's seasoned. So that means that now we've owned it, we've owned it for a number of seasons, right? And now we can demonstrate, it's like, look, this thing's operating at 98% now. It's actually where it's at right now. It's at 98% occupancy.
Nice.
Where, every November we're pushing the rents up. and up and up and up. We haven't had any problems, no murders, no drug overdoses, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's always good when that happens. And it's performing. So we're actually going through a refi with that. But that's another story in itself. It's like to do that type of asset. Those types of properties are very, very tough. It requires you to have, like I said, nerves of steel. If you're not into doing stuff like that, don't do it. You really, really, really have to want to do those types of deals. I've never done another deal like that, and I won't do another deal like that anymore. I think at this point, we're going to stick to like the C plus, the B assets, that kind of thing. We're staying away from the lower grade assets, unless there's a big value add play, where we can go in and reposition the whole thing. Then we'll do it. But as like there's student housing, there's all kinds of different property types within the multifamily asset class. You really have to select what you want to do and then do that, So back when I did it because I thought that it was a good idea. It still is fine. It's a fine property. It performs well. It's okay. It's just that it's not consistent with what I'm trying to build from a branding perspective. So, yeah, I don't think I'll never. Actually, I know I won't do another subsidized property anymore after this.
Okay, yeah. I guess like the good thing probably there is like you learned a lot of probably lessons.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you can learn from mistakes, but they don't have to be yours. So hopefully someone's going to learn from this mistake that I made.
Never. Yeah, never by like because by the thing that you're describing, it seems to be like a class D with all the shootings and everything.
Well, it was, but now it's just like a C minus. Yeah, now it's like a C minus. It's better. It's certainly not a war zone anymore because fortunately the asset was big enough that you're able to control the whole area. So you got rid of all the bad people, right? So that's the good thing about taking on a big asset is that if you're able to change out the demographic over time, then it works out to your benefit because you're really increasing the value of the asset.
Okay. Yep. Do you still have like money in that deal, or you're totally now cashed out on?
No, we're all cashed out of that deal.
Okay, so now that's nice. So just kind of like a refi, then it's just like money.
That's it.
Money maker. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Then when you bought it from the previous owner, so regarding the T12 and rent roll, did you see kind of any red flag that you recall on their T12 or rent roll?
Fortunately, they had property management in place, so that's the thing, for smaller deals, you typically buy it from a mom and pop type person, and when you do that, it's kind of like you're typically getting it on like Excel, or it looks terrible, or the numbers don't add up, or whatever. And in this case, the property was managed by professional management, right? So we at least had access to a rent roll that was in Appfolio. Now, here's the thing, though, is that the expenses on the P&L, they had some capital expenses set up as operating expenses because they just they miscategorized all of it. So those are things you really have to watch out for because it's going to impact your overall cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they just didn't know what the hell they were doing. So when I saw that, I'm like, this is incorrect. So I have to back all that out. We saw water bills going up a little crazy. We saw, what else do we see? We did notice that the rents were not consistent, meaning like one person was paying $500, the other was paying $800 for the same one bedroom. It didn't make any sense, and that was only because they didn't implement the right bumps, the right increases quick enough, So it's also room for opportunity, right? Room for opportunity there. But at the same time too, I knew that we can't just take over the property and bang up the rent by $300. You can't do that, even if they are on a month-to-month lease. And if they are on a month-to-month lease and that's your goal, then You certainly can do it. I mean, if you're hell bent on getting the $300 a month, you can always get rid of those people and maybe they leave and they can get in there, fix the unit up and then rent it out for $800. You can do that too. It all depends on what your play is, right? But certainly the rent roll will play to the business plan, as to what you plan on doing.
Yep. Then, for this 56 units, you mentioned about the original asking was around 1.65. Were you able to get it to 1.65 or that 1.4?
No, I got it at 1.4.
1.4. Okay, so that's where okay. So you purchase it in 1.4 and then you mentioned around the economic vacancy of that property is around 80 plus.
Yeah, it was probably like
occupancy,
80. I think it was like 80, 84, 85%. Yeah.
Occupied. Okay. Then how was the financing breakdown look like on this? Was it like a bank loan? Because it's below the 90%. Usually Fannie lends on the 90%.
Well, it's 80% is typically the breaking point for many lenders. 90% is they'd like to see that, obviously. They need to stabilize, but if it's in the mid 80s, sometimes you can get it done. Depends on the broker, depends on the lender, depends on you, as a syndicator. But in this case, it was a little different because the bank had abandoned us at the closing table.
Oh, wow.
So I recommend that when you're out there and you're talking to these brokers and they message you on LinkedIn, like I get 1 million of those messages every day. I don't just do business with any type of broker. I just don't. I won't do business with any type of broker for that reason, right? I do business with Meridian, for instance, because they have never, ever, ever left me in the lurch. They've never just taken off on me. Every single deal that I give them, they commit to doing it. They do it. I don't even worry about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. That's huge, right? That's big. And because the last thing you want to do is get all the way to the closing table and then the lender bounces on you. And that's what this lender did, right? So I'll never do business with US Bank. That's who it was. I cannot recommend them. And, and they've approached me to do business. I won't do business with them either.
Yeah.
Once they burn you, you never do business with them again. That's one of my rules.
Yep.
Yeah. But the thing is though, is that I would, we had to like close it in a hurry. And then once we closed it, we refied it out, right? We just got a short-term bridge just to get in and out. And then we got the right financing in place. So, that's how we ended up having to do it. But yeah, I mean, it could have been avoided if we would have vetted out the broker and the lender, So finding the right broker and lender is huge. Got to find the right broker and lender.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think I heard like this horror stories like the last minute that they backed out.
Yeah. That's why it's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Then for this deal for the 1.4, how much was the loan amount?
Loan amount was let me see, and that one was about just over $1 million. I think 1.1.
Okay. Then what's your CapEx budget? Around what?
I think we've only put like $100K in CapEx. We didn't really need that much. We had to fix a couple of roofs, paint paint the interior walkways there. That's it. I mean, really didn't really do too much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then do you remember like how much was the loan interest on this? Although I know like you refinance after some time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Yeah, when we got in, we were paying a high interest loan, then we had to finance it back out. So yeah, I mean, interest rate, I think it was something like, I don't know, it might have been like 4.5% or something.
Okay. Then the loan terms for this, like how many years was the loan?
Well, it's a 30-year AM with, I think it was a 10-year.
10-year loan. Okay. Then this deal, like, was it like a syndicate? This is a syndication.
It was syndication. Yeah.
Then how much was that investor split, or if there's any also preferred return?
On a deal like that, I think what we do when we're putting our deals together, we'll say we target a 10% cash on cash return, 15% IRR. That's typically what we do.
Okay.
Right.
Then was there any upside or yeah, I think when you did the refinance on this, like a fully cash out, like the investor was also cashed out or they stayed in the deal? What was your business
No,
plan?
the investors always want their money, man.
Okay, so cash. So basically like it cash. Then yeah, well, what's the original business plan when you took over this property?
There's different assets required for different business plans, so in a case like this is just a cash flow deal, right? Many of these older C-class assets are just cash flow. You buy in, you just every month or every quarter rather, you get a check, that's about it. Maybe you do a refi, pull a little bit of money out, but we knew that because of it's a subsidized asset, you can't really pull out all that much, So it's very different than like, say, I did a tower in Euclid where we paid, I don't know, $4 million for it. A year later, actually less than a year later, we do a refi for almost $6 million. That's a different thing. You do that, you pull all the money out, give it back to the investors, they get the cash flow, everybody's happy. That's a whole different play.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's a cash flow deal. That's all it is. So it just throws off cash. That's it.
Okay. Then I think you already discussed about the cash on cash and IRR, then it's the syndication. Okay, let's go to the next portion of the show is the due diligence. Yeah, what due diligence that you remember that you did on this or your partners did also in this property?
I mean, yeah, when it comes to due diligence, I mean, you're doing due diligence on the financial side, you're doing due diligence on the physical side, you're doing it on the area, you're doing it on the tenants. I mean, your due diligence is huge because you're trying to find the real value in the asset, right? What is the real value? One thing you never do though is use that as an opportunity to squeeze out the buyer or the seller rather. That's one thing that totally irritates me is that like whenever I say I'm going to buy a deal, I'm very careful about looking around to the asset, spotting the things, and I've done this enough now. I've looked at enough deals. I know what things are going to cost. And yes, I'm going to have my due diligence. We're going to go through all the leases. We're going to do all that stuff too. But my number is contingent on the fact that, hey, Mr. Seller, all your stuff's in order. If all your stuff's in order, I'll give you X, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, if I find out they lie to me, or let's say for instance, they pad the leases with all their family members. So instead of a 96% occupancy, it's actually more like 79% because they put a bunch of fake people in there,
Yeah.
which has happened, by the way.
Oh, wow.
That has happened. Then you don't really have the type of asset that you're trying to bargain for. You know what I mean? So it's you really have to be very, very careful with your due diligence. But at the same time, too, you don't use it to try to like squeeze them out. Like I'll give you an example. There's a deal that we just did recently. It's a 96 unit deal, and we discovered an issue. The issue was underground. We found that there's a busted ceramic pipe, a sewer pipe, And I go back to the broker. I said, listen, we found an issue. We inspected the lines. We found one broken sewer pipe. We obviously didn't know about the sewer pipe. We're not going to retrade you or anything else like that. If you can either fix it or give us a credit for the $12,000. I had a proposal brought in. I gave it to him. Said, here's what's going to cost to fix it. Here's the bill. Here's everything. Totally on the up and up. And he just said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a credit for $8,000. And then that's it. I'm like, cool, do it. Great. No problem. I was trying to be very, very easy to work with, super easy to work with. Right. And I wasn't busting his chops about it either. If he would have said, no, screw you, take it as it is, I would be like, fine, whatever. I'm not going to make a big stink about a multi-million-dollar deal over $8,000. I'm not going to do that. That's just ridiculous. Right. But the thing is that it isn't like I after I get it under contract, then try to squeeze them out and say, oh, look, the concrete's all broken. Clearly I could have seen that. And I've had that happen to me, by the way, where it's like the buyer comes back to me and says, "Oh, the sidewalk is broken over here, so I need a credit." Well, it was broken before. It's like I just came in here and broke it. That's newbie mentality. If you start doing that stuff, you get a reputation for being a retrader. You'll never get another deal from a broker ever again, ever. Count on it. So don't ever retrade unless you have a valid reason to do so.
Yes. And I think I like your approach to, like, if you will retrade, you have a proof, okay, this is how much will it cost. This is from a quote from someone. Then at least the seller will know. So then it's now a negotiation, basically, will you do it? Then, or you just give us a credit.
Yeah. Or
yeah.
you know what, or you walk away from the deal altogether. It's like, it depends how bad it is. Like, how bad is that issue? Be ready to walk away. If we did it and we discover that all the sewer pipes are broken and there's $1 million of damage, well, okay, then, I mean, clearly we got to fix this, or we're just going to walk away from the deal. That's it. Don't be afraid to walk away from a deal. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's hard for people to walk away from a deal because they get fixated on it. And sometimes, you know what, the best thing to do is to just bounce out of that deal, if it's a bad one.
Yep. Then, regarding the capital raise, how much capital did you need to raise for this deal?
I think we only needed $500K. It was a very small deal.
500K. Okay. Then, you mentioned about that you need to just call two person, right? On this.
Say again.
I mean, you for the how many investors were participated in this?
We only had like five.
Okay.
Five investors. Yeah.
Yep. Then, how long did it take you, like, to do the whole race?
22 hours.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Then for I think the last, second to the last section is the closing cost. I know this is a small deal. Like, how much was the overall closing cost?
Man, I don't remember. I typically budget, I don't know, 1.5%, is typically what I budget for closing. I mean,
that's small.
Yeah.
Then, how long did it take from LOI, or I guess PSA to closing on this one?
From PSA to close, typically we do like a 30-day look, 30-day close. I think in this one we had to extend a couple of times because of we extended once because of some financing issues, but I don't know, 2.5 months.
2.5 months. Okay, that's nice. Then the last portion of the show is where I ask each and every guest this final 5 sizzling questions. So,
all right.
Yeah, so the question number 1, any lessons learned that you want to share from deal analysis, due diligence, capital raise, financing?
Hey man, you know what? I mean, the best advice I can give anybody is to, when you're getting started, actually train and learn the business, like learn what it is, how to put a deal together. So that way, when you do get in front of an actual seller, you don't show up like a newbie, right? That's probably the biggest and best advice I can give, because lately we've been selling off our smaller assets, and we get a lot of people that show up and they're newbies. You can tell it's written all over their face, the way that they put together their LOI, what they say, how they say it, how they sound. They're not responsive. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, and I get it, maybe they have a second job or something like that, but you have to consider the best thing you can do is consider the other side. And to them, this is their life. This is their livelihood. You're messing with their money if you're not doing what you say you're doing, right? And if you ever want to get a deal, maybe you get lucky and you close that first deal. If you ever want to get a second deal, you better be easy to work with. So don't be like newbie in the dark type scenario. Study and train and know what you're going to say, and work well with your broker. They can help guide you, so you don't look like a total noob.
Yes. I think also, like, value the time also of the brokers. As you said, like, this is their livelihood. Do not waste their time. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's critical. Then the second question is, any recommended books?
My books, the books I listen to, they vary. I mean, on The Shortness of Life by Seneca, it's that one changed my life. And I highly recommend that everybody reads it, because I think what you're going to realize is that we think we have a finite amount of time, and or every day we're one day closer to death. That's a Stoic philosophy. I know it sounds really morbid, but you really, really need to commit to doing better every day, because every single day that passes is another day less on this planet. So you really have to commit and give it all you got every day.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, then for the third question, any recommended podcast, YouTube channel that you're listening to and would recommend? I know you have a Bulletproof Cash.
That's the only podcast I listen to, man.
Yes, yeah. I'll put that in the show notes.
There we go.
Yeah. Then for the next, the fourth question is this is the time to promote yourself. What's your acquisition criteria for multifamily, like location, units? Then this is to let everyone know and reach out to you if they have any deals in those areas.
Sure. So right now I'm just buying in and around Cleveland, right? So trying to find one of three types of assets, or all three. Trying to find value add C-class assets or stabilized B-class assets. I'm okay with those. Preferably in Cleveland and in surrounding areas, Cleveland, primary, secondary markets. I'm staying away from tertiary markets right now. Greater than 100 units. 100 units is fine. I might go to even a little bit lower depending on where it's located and how close it is to some other assets we may have in the area, right? So there's a deal that we're looking at right now. It's an 80-unit deal. We're looking at it only because it's right next door to another property we already own. So it makes sense from an operational perspective to go ahead and take that down. We're also looking at triple net deals as well. That's pretty much anywhere in the South. Any southern states, we're looking at triple net, and that's going to be like your advanced auto parts, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, those types of things. We're staying away from quick service restaurant right now. We may get into it in the future, but for the time being, we're staying away from that. But yeah, those advanced auto parts and healthcare related as well too.
Walgreens or CVS.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So that, and of course, historical buildings too. I love old historical redevelopment plays. Those would be a little bit tougher to come by just because everybody's keeping an eye on them right now. But Cleveland is where we're doing them. The Rockefeller is definitely a trophy asset. But we're looking at getting another one here under contract hopefully soon. So that'll be another one that we're doing.
Okay, awesome. Then for the last question, what's the best way to contact you?
Social media is great. Bulletproofcashflow.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. You can also connect with me directly. Best way, obviously, through social. LinkedIn is great too. That's probably the best way. Yeah, right there.
Thank you for your time. And glad we have you here.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, thanks.